Hey guys, Ryan Dement from Chasing Financial Freedom podcast. I hope you guys are having a great day. Today on the podcast, we have Greg Birch, veteran sales and leadership coach, podcast host. I need more coffee, guys, and speaker. Greg, welcome to the show.
Ryan, thank you so much for having me, man. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
You're more than welcome. If I can get my coffee in me, we'd be a lot better. So I see you're sipping on some too.
I
So
was.
I've been up since 4 Arizona time, so my brain is a little frazzled right now, but we'll get through this. So tell me, before we jump into what you're doing today, just a little
Yeah.
bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah. So I am a prior Army officer, served for 11 years, went to both Iraq and Afghanistan. Um, I was married and we have kids. We have 4 kids together. Got a divorce, marriage, military can be hard on marriages. And it changed my perspective of the military. So I always believed I was going to serve like my entire life. I really loved what I did, but missing time for my kids kind of changed everything for me. So I ended up getting out, and I decided to try my hand at entrepreneurship, at working for myself. And like most entrepreneurs, when you start off, I had a tough time. And it was real rough, man. You're laughing, you're shaking your head. You're like, yeah, I know.
I know it.
So, there's a couple different ways that you could look at, especially when it comes to sales entrepreneurship. You have what I've seen. There's like 2 different types. You have the one person that comes in and they're not good at all, and they go through that school of hard knocks,
Mhm.
and they learn the right way. Sometimes it depends on how fast they learn. It depends on their mentorship and the people around them. That's why I think it's so key, the people that you surround yourself with. But then you have the other person that comes in really quickly and has some success, and then they think, "Oh, I got it. I'm good." And and then the chargebacks start rolling in and the cancellations, and it starts to get real rough, and they're like, "Wait a second, this isn't what I thought it was. Maybe this isn't for me." I was the second person. So
Oh,
I
okay.
came in and had some really good success, came in just like lighting my company on fire with sales, and I had some good help with me. And I just like I started in October of 2017, and they had started a competition across the entire company of like, hey, everyone that's a new agent for the first 2 years of being here, automatically entering this competition, and it's to see how well they sell. And I got the number one position in the entire company. And
If I remember right, you were selling insurance?
yes, I was selling life insurance.
Okay, perfect.
And I had a lot of really good support and help, and I leaned on a lot of my expertise and things that I'd learned in the military, um, tactics and strategies just for discipline and being able to communicate with people effectively. So, because I was an interrogator and a source operator in Afghanistan, and so I'm used to like talking to people and influencing people to get me to do things, so give me information, right? So, so I had that success, and then I left that company. I went to another one just due to leads, and there's some stuff that I didn't like that was going on there. So, and that's when the challenges started to hit, and I started to have. I was like it was hitting a wall, and um, and then I started, and I actually got worse and worse and worse and worse because I wasn't doing the fundamentals, the soft skills I call, or what we know as in sales. I wasn't doing those basic fundamental tasks on a daily basis that keep me sharp, that keep me accountable, that keep me disciplined. And I struggled all of 2018 until the end of 2018 when I had a conversation with this top producer, and he was crushing it. He was like doing 10, 15, 20K a week every week and just killing it, and I was doing like 3K a month in comparison. And so we connected, and he used to fly out to Fort Worth every once a month and go run business. And so he flies out to Fort Worth, and we sit down, and I took him. He drove over to the Dallas side because he told me, he's like, "Hey, I'm in town. I just finished my business." It was a Saturday night. It was the Saturday before Thanksgiving. Still remember this. So it was clear as day. And he's like, hey man, I just got done my appointments. I've been here since Thursday. I'm done, but I don't fly out till tomorrow. You want to link up? And we had a conversation on the phone one time prior to this, and he knew I was in the area. So I was like, yeah, let's link up. So he drove over on the south side. We went to a place called Series Pizza. We had a couple of slices of pizza and some beer on a Saturday night. And I'm like, dude, how'd you do? And he was like, yeah, I finished the trip at 36,000. And I was like, 36,000, like that's what you're at for the month? You know, so like in the month, he's like, no, bro, that's just for the trip. And I was like, so for 3 days, for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you're running business. You sold $36,000 of insurance. Like, dude, bro, like, give me the skinny. Can I curse on here? I don't know if
Oh yeah, sure.
okay. I was like, what the fuck are you doing, bro? Just tell me. And he was like, yeah. He's like, sure thing, man. Let me ask you some questions. See how I can help. So I was like, yeah, sure. So he starts to ask me questions, and I'm tap dancing the answers, man. And all the questions are like, hey, how's your schedule? Are you controlling your schedule? Are you putting everything in your calendar? Hey, how's your lead flow? Are you buying leads every week? Hey, how's your calls? Are you locking down your dial days and scheduling and setting the appropriate amount of appointments every single day? Hey, how's your metrics? Are you checking your metrics and like how many appointments you're setting versus sitting versus closing? Hey, what's your goals? Hey, are you going to training every single week? Right. And I was tap dancing through all of these. And he finally stopped and he looked at me and he got real close. He's like, Greg, I know what your problem is, bro. And I was like, what? He's like, you think you're special and you're not. And like, dude, it was like a dagger to the heart because there's this guy who I've never met in person before, who, by the way, he was a Russian American. He only had his American citizenship for 1 year. 1 year. He sounded like, he sounded and looked like Gru from Despicable Me. Not even kidding. And I'm like, dude, I've led soldiers in combat, bro. I am special. You know what I'm saying? Like and so, but he was right. And I stopped and I looked at it and I was like, dude, I need to start listening to people that are doing better than me. And so I took everything he had to say. I shut off my mind, stopped trying to like recreate the wheel, make things easier on myself. And I started implementing these things. And I went from in 2018, I was at the end of 2018. In all of 2018, I sold about $75,000 worth of life insurance and I made about 60,000. In 2019, by applying the things that he told me to apply, which is just basic fundamentals, I sold 425,000 of life insurance, deposited like 375 and made a massive difference. And so, and that was how I stopped making the same mistakes and started to learn and grow. And I learned a lot from that experience. But the most basic thing was the fundamentals, was controlling in a disciplined fashion the things that people don't think are sexy. You know, in sales, everyone thinks that you got to have the right script. You got to be fast on your feet. You got to have the silver tongue, you know, and honestly, if you are scheduling your stuff out every single day, if you're controlling the things you can control, like how many contacts of clients you're doing, you know, how often that you're attending training, surrounding yourself with the right people, setting up goals, tracking your metrics. Like a lot of people don't even track their metrics. A lot of times I'll have agents that'll call me and be like, I'm having this issue, this, that, the other. I'm like, okay, well, tell me your metrics from last week. And they're like, well, what do you mean? How many dials did you do last week? I don't know. How many appointments did you set? Oh, well, it was, and they're starting to tap dance just like I was, you know? And I'm like, what trainings are you going to on a weekly basis? Are you reading daily? Are you like growing your mind and growing yourself professionally? And I go over all these things. I tell them the same thing that I was told. I'm like, hey, you know why you suck? It's because you think you're special and you're not. You're not following these basic things. And these are like non-negotiables. And I tell my agents all the time, and anyone that I coach, this isn't like a good, like, hey, this is a good idea, like a good practice. This is a requirement if you want to be excellent in sales. There is no other way. And so go ahead. It sounds like you're
No. You're going into a bunch of stuff and we could talk about a bunch of things. So before I go down rabbit holes, first, I know I told you on our pre-call, but thank you for your service, because that's a big deal to me, because you went out and sacrificed your life and your family and everything to that extent to protect us. So thank you, one. Yeah. Two, when you said you're not special, when he told you that, what was your first reaction? I mean, just point blank, what was it?
Ego. I literally, the first thing I thought was like, fuck this guy. was the first thought in my head. I was like, this guy doesn't know. I am special. Like I was just like, I was sitting, and that was my ego mind kicking in. Like, dude, like I've got 2 Bronze Star medals. I've literally led soldiers in combat operations. I've been shot at. I've had a grenade thrown at me. No, whatever. And then I stopped and I let that kind of simmer for a second, and I was listening to him, and he started going into like, and he was like, the reason why I'm doing so well is because I'm not special either. And I realize that. So I have to follow a system that works for everybody. And here's the system. And he broke it out. And there's beauty in that. And there's beauty in being in taking away your ego and saying, you know what, I'm not special. But you know what? Neither is that guy. Neither is Elon Musk. Neither is like, and dude, we all got the same 24 hours in a day, and we can all do the same things. It's just
Yeah.
how productive do you want to be with the time that you have allotted?
Let me ask you an inverse question because this is a little different because I'm dealing with this today and it's kind of somewhat like that. So my day jobs are real estate investing, affordable housing, and we also do some private lending. You would be amazed when you reach out and speak to realtors or mortgage brokers how taboo, and that's just the best word I can think of, when you talk to them about private lending, because private lending, God forbid, it's, it's shit is what they say. But you'd be amazed once you have that conversation with them and be able to get past they're not special. You just made me think of this. And I have to ask a question. If your customer thinks they're special and they're above and beyond what you're trying to sell, how do you work with that? And I'm not just asking for me. I know there's other people that are in this space that struggle with this too. And
Yeah,
there's some days I just want to tell them to go pound salt. It's like, do you really think because you've got a realtor's license makes you special? I mean, anybody can go take the test if they want to.
yeah,
I'm not downplaying it, but at the end of the day, if you don't understand a concept, you don't shit on it.
exactly. No, that's a good question. Um, so in the past 2 years, I've done a lot of marketing research. I don't know if you've read any of the books like Purple Cow by Seth Godin, any of Seth Godin stuff.
I've read some of this stuff, not all of it.
Yeah, Seth Godin's fantastic. But one of the things that they talk about when it comes to marketing, probably the initial concept that you have to learn is your ideal client avatar. Like, and this is the
Oh yeah.
person that understands you. That if you look at what's called the law of diffusion of innovations, kind of like this bell curve, right?
Mhm.
And so what happens is that at the beginning of that bell curve, the first 10 to 12% of your market is your ideal client avatar. These are what's called early adopters and early innovators. And these are the people that sing your praises from the rooftop. These are the people that, like, when you say, hey, this is what we're going to do, and this is what we sell, they're like, we love it. They stand in line. These are the people that for Apple will stand in line for a week outside before the launch of a new phone just to say that they were the first to have it, right?
Yeah.
You focus all of your effort on the early adopters and early innovators because it makes your business more seamless. It makes it to where you don't have to convince or really drag people along the process because they align with you. And so if you spend your time talking to people trying to like get them to believe in the same thought process as you, especially if these are clients you're doing business with, and you're spending a lot of time with that, you're constantly hitting or losing traction. You're hitting opposition constantly. It makes it to where your business can't go fast enough. Now, a lot of people will see that and they'll be like, "Yeah, but I can sell to everybody," and it's not
No.
that you can't. You can. Your product may be okay for every single person, but you really want to like hone in on who's the best client for you and what's the easiest, most seamless sales process. Because what's going to happen is that you can provide the best service to them and just be undeniably great. And then they will do the marketing past what's called the chasm, which is that small piece of percentage between the early adopters, early innovators, to getting into mass market. And when it hits mass market, it's like boom, it hits hard. But you don't do the marketing to get in mass market. Your clients do the marketing for you just by you being so great at what you do, and they feel stupid not telling people about it. And this happens all the time, right? um, there's a a book, really good book called Contagious that talks
Mhm.
about this specific concept of, and it does it for multiple industries. It does it for like the restaurant industry, it does it for retail, it does it just for ads, all kinds of stuff. But when you have something that's contagious, people feel obliged to talk about it because it makes them interesting. So, like, if you went to a simple example is if you went to a restaurant that was like a 5-star restaurant and everything about it was completely unique to you, like the way that the service handled you from the time that you walked in the door, the ambiance, the wait staff, the manager that comes over and checks on everything, the cook that comes out and delivers the food to you, and like the food is top notch, everything, and then you look at the bill and you think this is going to be out way outside the price range, but it's not. It actually surprises you, and you're like, dude, not only was this like not as expensive as I thought it was going to be, but this is also the best experience ever. You would feel obliged to go tell people about that.
Yeah,
And you
for
just do it
sure.
naturally in conversation, right? That's why they do those kinds of things. Like really great businesses will do that, knowing that you're going to tell your friends, tell your family, and be like, you need to go check this out, XYZ. So when you're working, and you can do this in any industry, it just takes a little bit of a thought process of like, how can I be so great and do things unique that will that will help in the retention process of the sales process after I've made the sale, to get them to bring more clients to me without me having to ask. They just do it. They feel obliged to do it. Now, it's a lot easier to do that process if you're working with the right clientele that you don't
Mhm.
have to drag, push, pull across the finish line just to get that sale. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah, I totally get it because going through the realtor population is I would say it's difficult, but one of the things I've been able to do is being able to find data on specific realtors that I think potentially could be that avatar,
Mhm.
and being able to drill down to their clients that they've sold houses to and understanding what that client looks like, because I have an avatar that's the end user of private lending that, works very well. It's typically a person that is a long-term renter. They've been left behind with the behind in the financial or credit markets, to where they, one, don't trust it, or two, really don't have very much credit. Not bad credit, they just don't have very much. And then three, they're typically blue collar, hardworking individuals where they're making, 50 to $70,000 a year, and they still have mattress money. They
Yeah.
literally have mattress money. And a couple realtors that I'm working with, I got turned on to this about 6 or 9 months ago. I went to one of their open houses, and literally a gentleman with his family walked in with a duffel bag of cash and said, "I'm ready to buy the house." And I'm like, "Holy crap. What are you gonna do with that?" That was $60,000 worth of cash.
Yeah.
And you can't do it. I mean, there's so many laws and regulations about that. And of course, he couldn't qualify because he didn't have any traditional credit. So then we got turned on to private lending and be able to go through that whole process. And I'm like, why am I not doing more of this? There's more
Mm.
of these people out there. I just have to find the end user and then pretty much backdoor it through a realtor. So I'm trying to figure that out still.
Yeah. No, it sounds like a little bit of a pickle with, and I don't know that industry very well, so I know enough to like have a conversation openly, but that's about it. Because I
Yeah,
have
no,
some
no, no, no.
realtors.
It's just relatable. So I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to look for advice. It's relatable, and it's been an iteration for 6 months of just trying to find the right ways. And the two that I have, we're working with, do a very good job of bringing people to us.
Mhm.
It's the industry is all about following the letter of everything in the industry. So you go out and get clients, and you do that. And if they don't qualify for a traditional mortgage, you don't work with them. That's the biggest step there. They
Yeah.
don't see that, and they think that they just have to walk away because there's more people. Now all of a sudden the market is shifted, excuse me, and guess what? Now you got almost 30% of realtors nationwide walking away from the industry because they can't afford themselves. They can't afford their lifestyles anymore, so they gotta go get a 9 to 5 job.
So
If you have this additional tool
mhm.
that you can still put people in houses and still make a commission, it could potentially keep you in that position longer, or maybe even keep you in the industry.
so thinking about it, this is what I would do if I was in your position. I bet you there's probably Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups that talk about private lending as an option
Mhm.
that you could go join and just look and see what realtors are in there and start making connections through there and just ask questions like, hey, I saw you in the group. Hey, have you been using private lending successfully for your clients? Right. And start that conversation organically.
Yep.
If you can't find them, then you can create them yourself. You can create that group on Facebook and you can create that group on LinkedIn. And what you can do is just start targeting realtors and inviting them to the group. The ones that will actually accept the invitation are going to be the ones that probably are open to having that conversation.
Yeah, I'm in some private lending groups on LinkedIn, and that's where that whole process has started, and
Yeah.
that's how I'm learning more pretty much underneath the hood of why they don't accept private lending, and
Yeah.
it's just a I don't know how to describe it. They're just so staunch in what they're doing, and they only want to work with their provided lender or somebody else, but a private lender doesn't work. So it's just a whole process. But no, it's something I go after. I enjoy it. It's fun, and it's a challenge for me because
Yeah.
it's something I truly enjoy, and I'll figure it out. I mean, it's just it's life. I mean, I love what you and I digress, but I love how you talked about is that no one is special and you have to find a way to work with, those individuals, but yourself too.
Mhm.
So when you had that going and you finally figured out that, hey, I'm not special, the light bulb turned on. What did you do to start, turning your sales around the following year?
Yeah. So first and foremost is I just started investing in leads, and I was afraid to invest in leads. And there's a couple ways that you can get, and when you're in insurance and sales, you can buy leads, or you can do warm market, or you can do friends and family, right? Or you can just get free data and just go door knocking, right? But that's going to be a grind. It's going to be time, and you
Mhm.
only have two resources when it comes to this. You have time and you have money. Like,
Yep.
and my time I can't. It's finite. There's only so much of it. Money I can make, and I can use, and I started seeing it in that perspective. So I just started testing all kinds of leads. And what that did was it put me in a position where, because didn't have the money, to be honest, I started like overextending on credit and stuff like that. But it put me in a position where I had to get to work because I was so fearful of, like, if this doesn't work out, I'm not going to make any money and I'm in debt. Like, so I had a lot of things that held me accountable. And then I started tracking all my metrics. That evening when I got home from eating that pizza with him, I literally went home and said, because he had a picture on his phone and he showed me, and it was like his goal he had written out
Mhm.
for 2018, and it was a screensaver on his phone. And it was his first year in insurance, and he wanted to write $400,000 in insurance in his first year. He wrote 650,000 that first year.
Wow.
And this was because I was going into my second year. So I was like, hey, I went home, I wrote on two pieces of paper. In 2019, I'm gonna write 400, issue pay 400,000 of life insurance, and I'm going to build this big of a team. Right. And I took a picture of it. It was my screensaver, or my lock screen and my home screen for my phone. So I saw it every single time I looked at my phone. And it was a constant reminder, like, I got to get to work. But I also I put one, because I wrote it out twice. Put one on my fridge and I put one on the wall beside my bed. So I saw it every single morning I woke up. I saw it every single morning before I went to sleep, or every single evening before I went to sleep. And then um, tracking my numbers, tracking my metrics, and making sure I had the right amount of appointments every single week, like doing some of those simple things. And then I started going to every single training. I didn't even care. Like, there was times at the time I was trying to date somebody, and I was in between dating people, and um, I would be like going over for a date, and we would have a call training where we'd have to dial in on freeconferencecall.com.
Mhm.
We'd have to call in and listen to it. And I would dial in, and I would be like, it would be on my car speaker, and I'd be like driving to a date, and I'd be picking them up, and also be going to like the restaurant, and I'd have it in. And then like I would listen to it. I would finish it before I started. And I'd be like, hey, like, you got to understand, like, I'm doing this for work. I was like super disappointed. I was like focused. Nothing's going to derail me. Right. But those things add up. Those small little daily disciplines add up. and they force you to be more controlled and more consistent with your business, and your business eventually gets predictable. And so what happened was that I knew with like a specific lead type, I got to the point to where I was like, hey, if I get 10 of these leads, I'm making $6,000 by with these 10 leads by the end of the week. I already knew the conversions in my head because I did it so many times. And it's just getting in the reps, right? Like if you think about it with anything in the world, think about the first time that you did anything, first time you got on a bike and you rode a bicycle. I could sit here and tell you all day long what it's like, how it's going to feel, how you're going to balance yourself. But until you get on, you're going to and fall a couple times, you're not going to know. It doesn't matter what your age is. So, but once you do it after a while and you do it consistently and consistently and consistently, and you're practicing it daily, eventually you're riding around doing wheelies and riding around on one wheel and like doing all kinds of crazy stuff because you've gotten so used to it and it feels normal and natural. But it takes time to get to that unconscious competence. And so I got to the unconscious competence eventually where I got really good on my script. I got really good on the phones. I started leading trainings. I was getting asked to do things, right? Because I had made this massive shift. And I started having agents reach out to me that would be like, dude, what are you doing different? Like you're so much better, blah, blah. And I was just like, and that's how I started coaching. That's how I started coaching on sales. It was just by happenstance. And I would sit down and be like, okay, well, break out what you're doing. And I would literally go through everything with them. And I'd be like, okay, well, I'm gonna tell you the same thing I was told. You think you're special, you're not. But let's look at where we can tweak some stuff. Hey, this piece right here, I want you to completely get rid of this. Stop doing this. Instead, I want you to replace it with this. We're gonna make small changes over time. Do this for the next week. Call me back at the end of the week. As long as you do this, we're going to talk about the difference in the differences in your numbers, right? And then they would do that. They'd come back and be like, holy crap, that was a big difference. Okay, so now we're going to push the gas on this. You've already made that change. We're going to change one more thing. And I would like piecemeal out their entire, like all their activities over a day and a week and look at it from that perspective and change slight things to help increase their performance and their production. And it seemed like I had I think it's maybe the military in me and the way that the
Yeah.
military teaches and trains. Because I always have agents, but like no one's ever explained it to me like this. And it's like, well, it makes sense to me. Like that's just how I break things down. I'm very much like, dude, give me a checklist. Like, let's knock this thing out, just checklist this stuff off, and I'm good to go. So
Do you have a morning routine at all that you start with daily?
I do. I do. I think morning routines are super powerful. And it's and I didn't then. To be honest, I didn't then. I just got up and was just like, oh, like get up and like just trying to go at
Even
it.
in the military, you didn't have a morning routine at all?
In the military, I did because because we would go to PT in the morning every morning,
Yeah.
so I was getting up at a specific time, waking up, making my coffee, going to the PT field, showing up, doing formation, doing PT, coming back, eating breakfast, stuff like that. But it was out of necessity and there wasn't
Mhm.
a lot of thought to it, right? Whereas now I have a morning routine that I've prioritized and scheduled in a specific way that feeds my day. And it also kind of feeds my discipline. And it's the small things like getting something productive done first thing when you wake up. It gives you that little tiny win, that little W. And then I just stack a bunch of W's consistently. And by the time it's like I get up at 5 a.m. every day, by the time it's 7, I've stacked so many wins that it fuels the rest of my day. I already feel
Yeah.
like I'm crushing the day. So like I wake up, first thing I do when I wake up is I do 50 push-ups. So I do 1,000 push-ups a day, by the way.
Wow.
I do it in sets of 25 and 50. And so the first thing I do is I wake up, I do 50 push-ups. And then I weigh myself. I want to see what I weigh. I weigh myself every morning, and then I chug about 30 ounces of water. I have a cup of water, a bottle of water that's by my bed. I chug it, and then right after I chug that water is I do meditation. So I do the Silva method meditation. So I
Mhm.
do a meditation for about 10-15 minutes. I pray, and then I go and write out all my gratefuls. And I have a journal where write out, hey, this is the things that I'm grateful for that happened yesterday that I kind of reflect on all morning. But I write all those things out and then I journal. I get ready for the gym. I go to the gym. I come back, I read, I do reading every day. I read and I take notes on what I learned, and I do my posts, my morning posts. So by this time I've probably done 3 or 4 stories to kind of capture all the things that I'm doing on a daily basis just to inspire or coach or teach other people. But just doing those things every single morning really gets me in the right headspace and the right mindset so that the rest of my day is completely scheduled out. Like I have, and I also have an evening routine. So in the evening, I make sure I write down, hey, here's the tasks I have to do tomorrow. So I have everything written out. I know what I have to do. It makes it to where when I get done with my morning tasks, I just go, I execute. I already know what I'm going to do. And it keeps me on a roll because I've already started doing stuff. It's easier to kind of keep that momentum going throughout the day. And then as long as I accomplish my task for the day, which is a non-negotiable for me, it's okay. I got these 4 tasks I have to do tomorrow. I'm going to get them done. My work's not done until they're done. And when they're done, that's awesome. Anything else that comes in, I have to handle it. I will. But those 4 things have to get done, or those 5 things, or those 3 things, whatever it is that I have on my list. Running my schedule like that on a daily basis, what it does is it gives me so many little small wins that over time I'm stacking all these small wins into a large win. And
Yeah.
that's what a lot of people don't realize is the consistency factor of doing the right things consistently and being disciplined in that. When they look at anyone in any industry, influencers, famous people, whoever, it's not, and they think, oh man, that's awesome. They did this massive thing, but what you don't realize is that that massive thing was actually comprised of all the small daily wins, of all the small, like
Yep.
getting up, going to practice and doing 2 practices a day, getting up at 4 a.m., eating the right stuff. Every single time that they go against that, that's a loss. And the losses come with interest, and you don't realize that. So you wake up and think, okay, I'm gonna do Greg's thing. I'm gonna change tomorrow. I'm gonna get up at 5. I'm gonna do my 50 push-ups. 5 o'clock alarm hits, and you reach over and you're like, man, I'm tired. And you hit that snooze button, think it's just 10
Yep.
minutes. Loss. And then you hit the snooze button again, loss. Then you hit it again, loss. Now it's like 5:45, and you're like, oh man, well, I'm gonna do the push-ups, but I'm not gonna meditate because I don't have time. And then it's like
Yep.
loss. And it's all these losses that you're not realizing you're doing. And what it does is you make these small compromises. And as you make those compromises, you will compromise other things throughout the day. So it's like, well, I had to do these 4 things, but I'm going to start this tomorrow. So I'm going to do these 2 things. That way I could still, I forgot I got, so-and-so's birthday party. I got to go to the store. It's going to take me a while. I got to go get their birthday gift, whatever. And now you've compromised your way out of having a successful day and getting all those wins. And that happens to all of us all the time.
But for some reason, and let me back up really quick before I say that. I love what you're doing. I'm with you on the whole morning routine and
Mm,
making sure that you have a system in place. I've tweaked mine over the years, and I'm back in tweaking mode again. I'm up between 4 and 4:30.
mm,
Um, I have a dog named Moose. We go out for a walk, and I come back, and then I had a guest on this show, Daniel. He created an app called the God Walk app, and I'm like, I don't know about this. I mean, and he came on and he walked through what this app is. So basically, every morning you go out and you take a walk, and this app walks you through some questions that you need to answer, and it's really to the point about what crap you need to get done, and it's
mm,
helped me really focus on what I'm trying to do. So the very first thing is what's today's walk about? What are you trying to focus on, and what's coming in, into your mind? The next thing is, what are you thankful for? And then the next one is it really talks about what shit do you need to be held accountable on? What am I doing wrong that I need to get myself in my act together? And you really need to hold yourself accountable on those things. And then that is translated to changing my whole morning routine after that. Because when I come back, I journal. I have some inspirational reading that I do, read a little bit of the Bible, and then I write down a bunch of stuff that I want to accomplish. But then I do it in a second layer. I then look at it and say, okay, these are all a bunch of pieces of nuance that it's great, but what do I really need to get done today? Those small steps to give me some wins. And then I
mm,
break them down even further. And then I have a little section in my journal called Daily Idea. An idea pops in my head, and it's like, okay, today it's today, what I put down in there is my buy and build statement. I'm looking to buy existing businesses because we have a generational issue going on. And I'll say it really quick. There's 12.5 million baby boomers that have no succession plans whatsoever. Their kids want nothing to do with their businesses. Their businesses are pretty much ready to go. And they've been around 12, 15, 20 years, and they have no one to pass them off to. I want to buy 4 of those. That's part of my goal setting. I want to buy 4 of those in the next, I think I've got 3 years is what my goal is, because I keep on changing just depending on what it looks like.
Yeah.
But 3 years, I'd like to have 4 solid goals. They're not crazy businesses, car washes, laundromats, some type of service businesses. So I've got these statements that I go after. But the other thing that ends up in all this is the journaling piece. And I know I'm probably older than you. I'm pushing 50, but writing pen to paper does something for me that has changed how I take those wins in the morning and can translate them through the day. If I don't consistently journal daily, it really screws me up. And so that's been a change in my life for the last about 18 to 24 months. And that has truly allowed me to take the small wins, build them up. And when I do have a loss, that loss becomes a winning moment for my journal, so I can grow and expand my thought process. But better yet, I go out and I share it either on a podcast or reels or whatever. And
Mm.
people think I'm crazy because I'm sharing my losses. And it's like, you know what? That's who I am. I'm real. But at the end of the day, losing doesn't mean that you completely lost. Losing means that you're learning, you're putting yourself into another atmosphere, another position to gain that knowledge and move forward.
You, man, you're hitting on so many key points right now. Pen to paper, bro. Writing,
Yeah.
right? That's a skill I think with most people. I don't care what industry you're in. Is effective communication, both written and verbal.
Yes.
And the only way that you're going to get better at writing is by writing daily, but
Yeah.
also by reading daily. That's how you learn
I
more
read
vocabulary.
I left reading out, but yes, I do
Yeah.
read daily also.
Yeah. And it's like doing those 2 things every single day. Just those 2 are going to increase your vernacular massively and your ability to influence people either by written communication or verbal.
Mhm.
And um I'm the same way, man. Like I have to write out. And the other thing is thinking about being intentional about what are you thankful for? What are you grateful for? Because
Amen.
gratitude is an action. It's
Yeah.
not something passive. Too many people are like, oh, I'm a really grateful person. Okay, what was the last thing you wrote out or thought out that you're grateful, that you really took the time to meditate on and focus on? And most people don't take the time to do it. But you can't be grateful and unhappy. It's impossible.
No.
You cannot be grateful and unhappy. And there's too many people. Anxiety is the number 1 mental disorder that's treated. 45% of Americans, of adult Americans, 18 to age 55, 45% are treated with anxiety. You know what I'm saying? Like that's
That's
it's
crazy.
disgusting. It's
Yeah.
disgusting. And it shot up. It shot up with the invention of the smartphone and social media.
Man,
Having somebody,
we can go down a rabbit hole with that. I
oh,
mean, social media has gone crazy. And the funny thing is my podcasts, were started as pretty much just they were just I was happy to do them on a daily basis or a weekly basis, I should say. And now all of a sudden, now they've become outreach. And I have guests like you coming on, and I get a lot of messages during the week, and it's a consistent message. How are you getting out there and putting this out there and getting the views and getting the likes? And I said, it's been a 9-year journey, and
mhm.
it's an evolving journey. And it's been the persistency and the consistency in my life that have got me there. Believe me, I've made a ton of mistakes along the way. Uh, and one of the things that I learned coming out of, and I don't know if we talked about it in our pre-call or not, is I'm a 2-time failure at entrepreneurship. I had 2 businesses that failed, got me into $100,000 of debt because I thought and I'm gonna use your words, I thought I was special. I thought I knew something more than anybody else, and had to go back to corporate America with my tail between the legs and reinvent myself. And that's probably one of the most daunting tasks I've ever done in my life. And it really sucked because I had to go
It's
back
also
and say
very,
I
very
failed
humbling.
twice. It is very humbling. And I learned a lot from that process. But the one thing I did learn is corporate America never taught me to be a fisherman, to have food on my table and be able to protect myself, it never taught me that. And you having the military gave you some of that, but in corporate America, man, we lack that. Corporate America lacks those skills, and I think that's one of the biggest pieces we miss
Mhm.
when we transition from corporate America to being our own business, our own owner, entrepreneur, whatever you want to say. Those skills need to be taught and learned before you make that leap.
Yeah. No, and being able to be somebody that you can acknowledge your failures, I think is pivotal in that accountability piece. I'll tell you, um, when I started crushing it in 2019 and started doing successful, started coaching agents and selling at a high level, um, you're not immune to ego because
Yeah.
in 2020, guess what happened? I started sliding backwards because I was like, yeah, I got it. I got it. I got my goal. I know how to do this. And I ended 2020 um, with what I thought was a much better production. And then when I saw the end of year numbers, they were disgusting to me. I did 220,000 in 2020. Now I was also, there was other things I was doing. I was trying to like ramp up a new program and I was doing things um, because of COVID and I was transitioning to doing remote sales. I was making this whole remote sales program. There's a lot of that was going on, but I was still selling. And I thought, man, I probably got about 350,000, I thought I was around there. I wasn't, it was 220. And I was like, what the hell? Like, what is going on? And I was like, I realized I started getting away from fundamentals. I stopped going trainings all the time. I stopped doing the things I knew I had to do because I thought I had it down and I didn't. And so that was one factor of what was going on. The other factor was that I was also battling with massive depression, well,
Mhm.
PTSD,
Yeah.
depression, anxiety. And um from the outside looking in, I look like this successful person, making money, doing well in sales, helping agents, all this stuff. But what people didn't know is that on a daily basis, I was struggling. I was unhappy. I felt like I was living a lie, and I wouldn't feel like I was living up to my potential. The biggest issue that I had, was dependency issues. Growing up, being in the military, I was married when we were in college. I'd been with somebody my entire adult life until we got a divorce. And when we got a divorce, she had cheated on me while I was on deployment. I found out about it. I cheated on her, thinking like I'm going to get you back, right? And which is a terrible way to act as a partner, but it caused the eventual divorce.
Mhm.
And from that point on, I had never been alone as an adult. I'd never not had people around me, and I needed that. And so I started seeking relationships in every single person that I could find any remote connection to, and latching onto it. And it caused this vicious cycle of toxic relationships of over and over again. And I got to the point in 2018, just before I kind of changed everything and I started getting really good at sales, I had a point where I started having suicidal ideations. My ex girlfriend and my girlfriend at the time, she was also my fiance. We got into an argument about something stupid. If somebody I wasn't even happy with, I didn't want to be with, but she said she started threatening to leave, and I started getting that fear. And next thing you know, I'm holding a gun to my head, and she's calling the cops. Cops are coming, and I was spiraling out of control, and so I felt like I had no control in my life, and the cops ended up coming and they talked to me, and the cops were very kind. They saw that I was a veteran, saw that I served. They're like, "Hey, man, you go to seek the VA," and I was like, "No," and they're like, "You need to, like, you brought some shit back with you." And I started seeking treatment. I started going to counseling. I started getting better, but I still was having this perpetual cycle of bad relationships. And what I found was that at the end of 2020, I had another bad relationship that ended. But it wasn't so much on my side, it was more on her side. But it was just like, man, these things keep happening to me. Like at what point? And I realized I was like, dude, I'm the problem. I'm the common denominator here. And I instead of going and just jumping into another relationship, I said, I'm gonna be single for a while and I'm gonna start doing work on myself. And I'll tell you, up to that point, from the time that I got divorced in 2015
Mhm.
up until the end of 2020, I had not been single longer than 3 days.
Wow.
I'm not even kidding you.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but
Yeah.
that's crazy.
3 days was the max before I was in a relationship. And then when I got in a relationship, it was like we were going strong. We were going it was when I was with somebody, it was like it was going to be long term, like 6 months or longer. Boom, done.
Wow.
And um, yeah, I spent the next like 5 months single and just really working on myself. And I spent that time really kind of examining my thoughts, how I spoke to myself, the dark places of my mind. I started working on my discipline personally and like who I was as a man, as a human being, and I I started to do daily disciplines. I went back to my military roots and I started looking at like I was always fascinated with the military training because they can take somebody, all these kids from across the nation, from different parts of the world, different parts of the country, different ethnic backgrounds, different religions, different socioeconomic statuses. They can bring them to one place, break them down to base, and turn them into warriors, into killers, right? And it's like, well, how do they do that in mass? Well, it's pretty simple. They control their environment. They make them clean. They control what they eat. They make them work out. They make them learn and read daily, right? They make them get up early,
Yep.
and it's non-negotiable. So they have all these controlling factors with disciplined action, and by the end, it changes the person. Anyone that's been through basic training, I promise you, and you'll agree that from the time you started basic training to the time you graduated, you're a different person. You're just a different person, right? So I was like, how can I take that concept and apply it to my life? Because I've already done this before. I understand this concept of discipline and what it can do for your life. And so I started to implement certain things. It wasn't until this time that I started reading every single day and writing every single day and making sure I watched exactly what I ate every single day. I removed alcohol from my life. If I stopped drinking, it was a hindrance. I started working out every single day. And when I did that, I had those things combined, compounded, had massive impacts in my life. And I literally became a different man. I became a different human being. And people started to realize. And so one of the things that happened is the transformation was just phenomenal. It was unbelievable. It's unlike anything I've ever gone through in my life. But I had this one day. Well, I started to realize like I'm saying no to too much in life. Like I need to start experiencing life at its fullest. I'm gonna start saying yes to all these opportunities because I watched the movie Yes Man, and it's one of my favorites. And so I was like, I'm just gonna start saying yes to everything. I had this epiphany. I'm like, dude, like it changed his life in the movie, right? And so it's actually based off of a book that's titled by the same. It's a really great book. If anyone there hasn't read it, you should go check it out. But I started saying yes to all these things. And I had a coach that I was working with, and he was one of my mentors. And he was like, "All right, so let's go ahead and do this." And he started saying, "Hey, let's go ahead and let's start doing a hobby. Like do something that's like that fuels you or fills another side of you." And he's like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "Well, I've always wanted to like do MMA again because I haven't done MMA since I was in the military, or do ballroom dancing. Like I like to dance. I want to learn." He's like, "Well, which one do you want to do?" I was like, "Well, let's do MMA." He was like, "All right, go start doing it." Literally that day, I was like, "Yep." I went and paid for a year membership for MMA for like a local place. Done. And then he was like, "You know what? You should start going back to church, Greg, and start, being consistent with that." Yep. Started going to church. "Hey, you know what? You should start tithing." Yep. Started tithing. Never tithed before in my adult life. He was like, all these agents, I was crushing it in sales. Like I started to break sales records because I was so in my flow state and so focused that everything became easier. And it wasn't that I was getting better at sales, is that I was becoming a more exceptional human being. I was just
Yeah.
listening better. I was speaking better. All these things where I was putting out a better vibe, a better energy. And so agents would come out to me and I was having the same conversations. And he was like, "You know what? You should start recording this and just putting it on YouTube and sending people to your YouTube channel." That's how I started podcasting. It just started as that. It started as some simple way to like provide sales coaching tips for people for free for agents in the industry so anyone can learn. And then that turned into what my podcast is today, the Be the Difference podcast. So all these things start lining up. Well, I'm in church one day, and every single day in church would be taking sacrament, and I would start repenting for the previous week. Like, oh, I should have done this. I could have done this better. I shouldn't have done this, XYZ. And I'm repenting, and it was like this voice, almost like it was me, but it was speaking at me. And it was very clear. It's just like, you have more to repent for, Greg. Like, I got done. It's just like, nope, you're not done. You got more to repent for. And I started working backwards. And I was like, you know what? The previous relationship that had just ended in 2020, the previous year, I had a lot of anger from that, from the things that she did. But then I started looking at it from a different lens. Well, there's things that I did. And if I hadn't done those things, is it possible that she wouldn't have done those things? Is it possible that I could have had a better relationship? And so I looked at it from the lens, not what she did, but what I did and what I could have done differently, because that's all I can control. And I started to repent and apologize and take accountability for all the things that I had done. And then I felt good. I was like, that felt healthy, right? I'm done. Nope, you're not done yet. You got more to repent for. And I started working backwards in every single relationship that I've been, all the way back to my marriage and back when we were in college together. And I started to take accountability for every freaking thing. And I realized this was like, yeah, my wife cheated on me at the time. My ex-wife cheated on me when I was deployed. But I didn't have to cheat on her. I didn't have to come back and get upset and cheat on her. That was on me. That doesn't justify it. Two wrongs don't make a right. Right? If I had done something else, if I had worked with her, if I'd been a better man, would I still be married? Would I still have my kids with me? You know? Probably. And I realized through this process, it was difficult. I was crying in church, to be honest. It was very difficult to look at these things and take accountability. But what I realized was that my actions that I've been doing in the past, they were not in line with the person that I knew myself to be in my heart. And being able to release those things, to actually face them and then forgive myself and release them, it stopped that cycle. It stopped me doing those same bullshit things over and over and over again, so that I could have a more fulfilling life. And I literally walked out of that church that day, dude. I felt like I was like 20 pounds lighter. I felt happier. I felt healthier. I was just like, dude, I don't know what that was. I don't know who spoke to me just now, but I feel great. And it was like all this time I'd been holding on to these things and like blames people, but I was like, it doesn't matter. I can't control other people. I can only control myself. I control 4 things: what I think, what I feel, what I say, and what I do. And I can't worry about what they do. I can only be the best version of myself and show up as that every day. And man, this huge transformation happened, and people started to realize and started to reach out and be like, dude, you look different. You feel different. Like, you talk different. You're more like, there's a positive energy about you. What's going on? And so I was like, dude, I'm telling you, like, you got to start doing this stuff. Right. And I started helping people and coaching people. And it was through physical fitness. That for me was the gateway into becoming a better person, to align myself both physically, spiritually, and mentally, to get that alignment where I could increase all 3 and truly become a better person. It started with being consistent and making daily changes in my physical fitness, because that's the easiest thing for people to change. Anyone can change their body, move more, eat less, drink more water, take alcohol out. It's pretty simple. But most of us need accountability, right? Like, we just have to have someone accountable to us to say, like, you do this, here's the plan, and make it dummy proof for us and kind of simple. And that was how I started my coaching. That was literally because I started just changing lives and helping these people. And I was like, it was all insurance agents that knew me. And I was like, there's a lot more people that have been where I've been. There's a lot more people that are facing, a lot more men in the world that have anxiety and depression, that feel unhealthy and unfulfilled, and are feeding themselves into vices of overeating, overconsumption of alcohol, too much sex, running around with women and trying to fill a void. They're probably doing because they're trying to fill this void in their heart, that they feel lonely, like I did. Right. And I was like, I knew what was going on, but it was hard to identify it. And when I got rid of those vices, man, I became a different human being. I'm telling you, it was like transcendent. And yeah, so now my passion is honestly just helping people to go through that same process that I did and literally just change their life. for the better.
That is so cool. But when you do that, and we're coming up top of the hour, so we're kind of running out of time here. But I wrote well, two questions. When you did that, how did your life change personally and professionally, or you either or whatever? And then
Mhm.
I've got to ask a follow-up question. Whatever happened to that guy that you met with for pizza? Where's he at today?
Okay. Okay, yeah. So, that guy that I met for pizza, I'll start with that one because that's quick. The guy that I met for pizza, he's still in the insurance industry, so he's still crushing it. He's still
And he's still crushing it. Do you
he's still
guys stay in connect with each other?
we haven't stayed really connected because I left that company. I created my own company, which is the
Okay.
follow-up to my second question. The first question is, what did it do for my business? So I completely revamped my entire business. I ended up creating my own IMO, Delta Financial, which is an IMO that I run. And I started my own podcast, the Be the Difference podcast. I have guests on all the time from different industries across the world, really, that are entrepreneurs that are providing great information, and I've learned a lot through it. I've been able to coach, dozens of clients to really change their life, but it changed my life massively. I ended up breaking a record in sales. I did something no one's ever done, which I sold $200,000 of insurance in 1 month.
Wow.
Yeah, I did
That's a lot.
200,000. I did $200,000 in 1 month. It was actually like 220 that I sold, and I did it all from my house. I did it all remotely, and I wanted to show it could be done. And it was like, I'm not special. Anyone can do it, but I want to show it's possible to really break the records and see what can be done. And that just kind of catapulted me as a sales trainer, as a coach, but also as a thought leader for within sales and within the industry. And it helped me to start Delta Financial, which then I then started my coaching business, which is Delta Fit, because my Delta Financial is all about like, hey, being the best version of yourself. I don't care about making you a better salesperson. I care more about making you a better person and making you happy and healthy in all areas of your life. Because when that happens, you're going to be more productive in sales, period. It's a natural secondary course of action. And then with Delta Fit, it was, I just want to help people to get rid of these vices because I see it. When I look and think of the 45% of Americans that are actually being treated with anxiety, 9 times out of 10, it's not that they really have anxiety, is that they're unfulfilled in their life, that they have zero passion, zero purpose, and they don't know what to do about it. And they spend all their time scrolling, screen sucking, watching Netflix, eating crap food, and all these little things, they do have an impact on your mind and on your soul.
Yeah.
And so if I can help even a small percentage of people to change that, I feel like that's my purpose now. Because I've walked through that change and I know what it's like. And I don't mind going back into the darkness and helping somebody out of that darkness because I've been there. I'm intimately familiar with those places. So
There's so much we could do and so much more we can talk about. You've opened up Pandora's box, but we have to end it here. So
yeah.
before we go, what is the best place people can get a hold of you? So if they want to change their lives and do something that has passion for them, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So you can go check out the Delta Fit website, which is deltafitlife.com, Delta Fit LIFE, life.com.
Okay.
You can schedule a one-on-one call with me. You can see all the different plans. I'm super open and transparent about, hey, this is how my system works. It's basically what I call is progressive discipline, which is what I developed through my time in the military and then doing my own personal development journey. Is I think discipline's the key. And a lot of people, if you put on too much, it really it can overwhelm you. So I start off with small building blocks that we progressively increase over time. And then they can check out my Instagram. So I do a lot of content on Instagram. I try to put out as much information and really help people with inspiration and motivational content. And that's my Instagram is Gregory A Birch _, and it's Birch BIRCH, like the tree.
And we'll share both those links in the show notes so people can get a hold of you.
Yeah.
Sir, thank you very much for coming on and being able to be part of the program, but also sharing your story.
It's my
It's
pleasure, man.
powerful, one, but two, it's inspirational because I feel like I've got a bunch of stuff I can do now, takeaways. I'm going to go probably take and read The Purple Cow. I
Oh, it's such
looked
a
at
good book,
it.
bro. You're not gonna be disappointed. It's a great book.
No, I'm rereading really quick 10X by Grant Cardone for probably about the 10th time.
Uh-huh.
and I'm just about done with it. So when I'm done with it, I'll go get the Purple Cow and I'll read it, and we'll chat about that.
Dude, if you ever want to chat about different books, I've been reading. I've read like 20 books this year so far.
That
So
is awesome.
I like breeze through them now because I started off 10 pages a day, but now I just breeze through them. Um, I got some I got some pretty phenomenal books I can recommend.
That's awesome. I started reading 20 pages a book. I saw a quote by, I think it was Warren Buffett, that talked about if you read 20 pages a day, you'd actually end up reading 30 books a year, I think is what it is, something to
Yeah,
that extent, close
yeah,
to that. So I started with that, and now it's 35 to 40 minutes every single morning that I read, and then I do the same thing at night, and it's just keeps on going.
yeah. It's a great way to compound knowledge.
It is. Well, sir, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate the opportunity.
Not a problem.